There is a caliber of discipline that makes the room go quiet. It is not swagger or threat, but a stillness that unsettles the lazy heart. Today, you will learn how to enter that stillness and stay there. You have seen its carriers, the one who rises at the same hour, repeats the same humble rites, and when others fade in week 3, keeps moving as if pulled by a private star. People call it unnatural. They are right. It is not natural. It is chosen. Ralph Waldo Emerson would say, greatness is self-trust shaped into habit. In old Japan, monks forged such habit into iron. They named the law that makes a practice sustain itself, continuous doing without a gap. Understand this, and you will not try a goal again. You will become the kind of person for whom breaking the chain feels impossible. But here is the toll. A part of you must die. The bargaining, excuse-making self that confuses preference with principle. The door opens when you allow a stricter identity to replace a softer one. This is not punishment. It is rebirth. Consider Raphael, a bright builder of software with a soft grip on vows. He could not keep any habit beyond a few weeks. The cycle was always the same. Monday zeal, Wednesday bargaining, Friday surrender, Sunday vows for a new Monday. He stacked up apps, rewards, partners in accountability. He fought fog with fog. What he resisted was not laziness. It was the architecture of his own mind. Then he encountered the temple's lesson. In certain zendos, a bell has rung before dawn for centuries, and bodies have risen with it. No debate, no deferral. The question, shall I rise today, is not asked because it does not exist. Why? The mind carries 2 chests for commitment, reversible and irreversible. What can be reversed invites negotiation. What cannot be reversed simply occurs. A vow, taken in the light of witnesses, does not request effort. It confers identity. The monk is not trying to meditate. The monk meditates because the monk is a meditator. The negotiation ends where the name begins. Modern science nods toward this ancient sense. When conduct becomes public, the older brain reads failure as a threat to standing. Status once meant survival. We still shake to its music. Emerson's wisdom is plainer. What you are speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say. Make your being louder than your promises. So Raphael altered the battlefield. He stopped whispering private intentions and issued a public declaration. In ink he wrote, I am a person who sits for 20 minutes each dawn at 5 o'clock for 90 consecutive days. He signed it. He spoke it aloud. He let friends smirk and colleagues tease. Perfect. Each witness became a quiet guard at the gate. The idea of reporting defeat on day 3 hurt more than the discipline required to rise. On the 3rd morning, the old chorus began, You are tired. One day will not matter. Be kind to yourself. Yet the new identity was already fastening its roots. To surrender would now mean not missing a session, but contradicting a self. Shame, misplaced when it protects vanity, becomes useful when it protects a vow, and still trouble remained. Public honor ended the argument, not the biology. His body cared little for reputation. It wanted sleep. Here the monks keep a second law, non-negotiable hours. Most of us bleed strength in 1,000 tiny choices. When will I do it? Now, after breakfast tonight, we spend our fuel deciding to drive. Fix the hour and remove time as a variable, and you remove 90% of the debate. Raphael chose 5 a.m., not for romance but for absence. The world was unawake. There were no messages to answer, no emergencies to counterfeit. The point was not optimization. It was elimination of noise, of excuse, of choice. The first week was a quarrel with flesh. The second, something turned. He woke a minute before the bell. On day 14, his feet found the floor before his thoughts found language. No heroics, just sequence. Thus a deeper clarity emerged. Fixed hours are not about the perfect schedule. They are about refusing to renegotiate with yourself. Vary the time and you invite a fresh courtroom each day. Fix it and the court is closed, but the mind is cunning. Having lost the debate over when, it sought new leverage in what. Raphael kept the hour, yet changed the content. Meditation on Monday, reading on Tuesday, push-ups when he felt more physical. The form wavered, and with it, the identity. Variety feels like freedom. Often it is an exit. Here, Emerson and Dogen agree in their different tongues. Forms are liberations. You submit to one way so that the soul can stop wasting itself on petty decisions. Raphael locked the sequence. 20 push-ups, 10 minutes seated, 10 minutes reading, same order, same timer, same place. He entered a private ango, 90 days of identical practice. The mind protested. You are not a machine. Creativity needs change. This is obsessive. But in the 4th week, the voice thinned. By the 6th, his hands were already counting their push-ups before the critic had put on its shoes. Willpower had done its singular job, survived long enough for repetition to take the reins. Habit, like a dancer, learns the steps until the music plays the body. Emerson insisted that our actions become us. This is the quiet alchemy you must permit. From decision to ritual, from ritual to nature. The practice begins by asking you to move it each day. Then it moves you. That is the threshold we seek in this first passage, from promise to person. When others call such steadiness not normal, accept the verdict. Normal is the average of surrendered mornings. You are after another arithmetic. Let the bell be your contract, the hour your creed, and the form your quiet declaration of self-reliance. But even as the rhythm of discipline took root, life, as it always does, sent tests that do not announce themselves. On the 35th day, Raphael fell ill, fevered, aching, dizzy. On the 40th, he was traveling. Airports, taxis, meetings that swallowed the day. These are the moments where most habits die, not because the person is weak, but because the world is unpredictable. The old self waits there, patient, coiled like a vine, ready to reclaim the abandoned wall. This is where most men say, just this once, I will rest. And the gap opens. The gap is not a pause. The gap is a return. Zen tradition teaches, if there is even one moment of interruption, the entire path begins again from the start. Not because the progress is lost, but because the identity is shaken. A river is still a river during drought, even if it has thinned to a whisper of itself. But once it stops, it is no longer a river. It is a bed of memory. So Raphael learned another law. Practice does not require perfection. It requires continuity. There is no rule that says the practice must always be grand, only that it must not die. So in a silent airport restroom, with fluorescent lights humming like insects, he placed his hands on cold tile and did his push-ups. He meditated in the back of a rideshare car. He read one page on an airplane while half asleep. Nothing was perfect. Everything was continuous, and here is where others begin to notice. His co-workers asked why he seemed steadier. His friends said he was becoming intense. One person told him, "Your discipline is unhealthy." Normal people don't do that. Understand this clearly. When your transformation exposes another person's stagnation, they will call your growth a sickness, not because they care for you, but because your consistency holds up a mirror they cannot look into. This is the moment when many turn back, not because the practice is hard, but because being different is hard. Because belonging is one of the earliest comforts we learn. But Emerson taught that to be yourself in a world that demands imitation is the rarest courage. And so Raphael kept going, not to impress, not to dominate, but simply because the practice had become part of him. Yet one final enemy remained, not body, not desire, not social pressure, but chaos itself. Life does not always present obstacles one at a time. Sometimes everything goes wrong at once. The child becomes sick. The car breaks down. The job tightens its grip. The unexpected knocks at the door, precisely when your ritual begins. Most people lose their habits here, not because they are weak, but because they are surprised. Zen tradition calls the antidote pre-solutions. You do not solve the problem when it arrives. You solve it before you ever meet it. Raphael sat down and wrote every situation that had ever broken him. No equipment, push-ups on the floor, too tired. Off-session still counts. Guests visiting. Practice quietly in another room. Travel. Practice in bathrooms, hallways, airport corners. Sick. tiny practice still counts. Continuity preserved, he wrote beside each one, "When this happens, I will do this." The answer existed before the emergency. This removed the heaviest weight of all, the need to decide. Decision-making consumes strength, strength needed for action. When the decision is already made, the body simply follows. A Yale researcher once explained, "Pre-deciding conserves willpower." You are not choosing your action, only executing it. Raphael no longer woke asking, "Will I?" The question had died. Only the sequence remained. By the 70th day, the habit was no longer something done by the mind. It had moved deeper, into the marrow, into the breath, into the unspoken layers where identity lives. There were mornings he finished his push-ups before he could remember starting. The practice had become self-moving. He was no longer keeping discipline. Discipline was keeping him. Now something curious happened. The same friends who once teased him began to ask for advice. The same co-workers who doubted him began to copy his schedule. Even those who mocked him returned quietly to ask, "How did you do it?" And the answer was no longer a strategy or a system. It was a becoming. His girlfriend, who once rolled her eyes, now watched him with an unfamiliar expression. Not annoyance, not curiosity, respect. Because what is respected is not intensity. It is consistency. Consistency is the one force the world cannot argue with. This is where the transformation begins to take shape, not in what you do, but in what you are able to bear without breaking. This is where others say, "That is not normal," and finally you agree, because you are no longer trying to be, you are becoming. The world will call this discipline. But discipline is merely the surface. What has truly occurred is identity, reborn, a man who does not negotiate with his weaker. Self is not strong because of willpower. He is strong because the old self has died. The Raphael who bargained, postponed, excused, delayed, he is gone. Replaced not by a stricter man, but by a simpler one. A man who no longer wakes each morning to a debate. A man who simply rises, simply moves, simply is. This is the secret Zen monks guard, not in words, but in their silence. When practice becomes identity, consistency becomes effortless. Most people try to do good habits. The wise become the person who cannot do otherwise. You begin the journey thinking discipline is something you perform. You end the journey realizing it is something you are. And when others finally see it, when the familiar softness in your step has hardened into resolve, when your days no longer bend to mood or circumstance, when you move with the quiet certainty of a man who has already chosen, they will look at you and say, "That's not normal." And you will feel a stillness inside you, a knowing that is neither pride nor explanation. You will simply understand, normal is the reason most lives never change. You did not come here to be normal. You came here to become unshakable. If there is one truth I leave you with, let it be this. Consistency is not the art of forcing yourself forward. Consistency is the art of removing the option to turn back. Once you remove the exit, the only direction left is mastery. So now the question returns to you. Are you willing to step across the line where your old self cannot follow? If yes, then speak your intention aloud. Not merely in your mind, the mind is too soft a chamber, but into the world where your voice can echo back to you. Write it. Declare it. Let others see it. Let the world hold you accountable to the self you are becoming, because once the world has heard you speak your transformation, there is no return to who you were before. You are stepping into a new life, one where practice is not something you do. It is the current you flow with, the rhythm you breathe, the quiet strength you carry.